How often do you think about the Oscars? I mean, really think about the Oscars. I know we all think about them for like 3 months at the start of the year when the race is actually on, but like, how often do you actually think about how many movies have won an Oscar? It's over 1,000 at this point, over 1,050 actually. They range in genre from sci-fi to horror to drama to comedy to drama to romance to drama to Jesus Christ. There's so many dramas, you guys. You don't even know. And they range in quality from genuine classics we still talk about to this day to hidden gems we've forgotten unfairly to genuinely some of the worst movies I've ever seen in my life. But all those movies are kind of a snapshot of where culture was at the time they won because they won Oscars, because they were considered big and important enough to be Oscar nominees, because the Academy saw something in them, even if we don't totally get it. So the premise of this podcast is this. Every episode, I will randomly determine an Oscar-winning movie, get two volunteer guests to talk about it with me, and we'll chat. The discussions will be a little free-form, a little loose. The only requirement for guests is that one of the three of us, either myself or one of my guests, has to be watching the movie for the first time. At least one. Sometimes it's all three of us. That's fairly common, actually, because a lot of these movies are more obscure than you might think. I would like to note that a movie's inclusion is not a recommendation of its quality. I saw the TV Glow, my favorite movie of 2024, didn't get nominated for any Oscars, whereas Amelia Perez, one of the worst pieces of shit I've ever seen in my life, won two. It's also not an endorsement of anyone who won an Oscar or was in an Oscar-winning movie. People who are cruel or thoughtless or racist or other forms of bigoted or absolute monsters have won Oscars. We sure all have a laundry list of those kind of people who have won awards, and I don't like that. I don't think anyone else does, but I don't think it's helping any of us to pretend that it's not the case, to pretend that these people didn't win their awards, and to pretend these movies don't exist. Even monsters can make great art sometimes, and even good people can make terrible art, so we're gonna find out what kind of movies win Oscars together. It's gonna take a while to examine them all. A lot of movies have already won Oscars, and it's not like they're stopping doing ceremonies while I'm doing my podcast. So, I hope you want to come along. And with all of that in mind, I'm your host, as always, Ellie McConaughey, and with me today is Andrew Wickliffe.
Hello?
And Vel.
Snappy intro. I couldn't think of anything for this one.
It's hard to be snappier than the movie in question, frankly.
Yeah, I don't have that raw witticism of Clark Gable.
Who amongst us does? And we are here today to talk about It Happened One Night, the 1934 Frank Capra film that won Outstanding Production, that's Best Picture, Best Director, Best Actor, Best Actress, and Best Writing Adaptation at the 7th Academy Awards. Which is, that was a hot minute ago, I feel. We're on what, number 97 at this point?
And it kicked off the sort of Capra Columbia Pictures sort of renaissance. I don't not maybe not renaissance because it wasn't, or maybe renaissance isn't
Golden Age.
yes, I mean obviously golden age, but there's the Columbia to this point had been, the least tier studio, and so Capra, I can't remember, and we talked in pre-show a little bit about pre-code, but I think It Happened One Night, even at this point in 1934, was a traditional sort of narrative trope.
Mm-hmm.
So they were commenting on the genre and sort of in some ways sending it off for a bit, but then go for it. I'm lost. I've lost myself.
No, I was gonna say, like, you're right in that this is sort of like one of the last pre-code hits. I want to say it hit like 3 or 4 months
Yeah,
after this movie came out. Like it was right under the wire.
This one came out in like February before the Hays Code actually hit. It is honestly a little confusing if you don't actually start looking up the dates as to whether or not it counts, because it's like, well, wait, because everyone usually just says pre-code. Was it 1934?
Mm-hmm.
It happened one night, 1934. It is literally down to
Down to the wire.
a few weeks. Yeah.
Yeah. And what's kind of interesting to me about that is like I've obviously seen this film before. It's one of those like I don't know if you know this, but this movie gets shown to you a lot in film school, especially if you're going in for writing. But you go and watch it, and you hear that it's pre-code, and part of you is expecting something a little like more in terms of its content. Like this, I don't think this would have been that far away from something after the code came out. Like it's really just down to what's her name, Ellie, Ellie, no relation, basically like throwing herself at Peter in that one scene. Spoiler for a movie that's older than your grandparents.
Yeah.
Audience.
Yeah, it's remarkably chaste. I think a good example I always like to think of for the pre-code is like The Thin Man, where, admittedly you're looking back at an older movie through the eyes of an older of modern sensibilities of what constitutes like PG-13, etc. But like that one, they're sharing a bed, they're much more clearly like all over each other, they're drinking like fishes, although that progressed post-code arguably, but like this is extremely I would watch this with my mom.
Oh, yes. This is a family, like the one of the channels plays it in your town at Thanksgiving and people watch it, right? Like this is, I mean, Capricorn would sort of not become a term. I mean, at least for a couple years. I can't remember when it was coined, but I think it was contemporary. But this is sort of like the fact that it doesn't take place around a major holiday is the only reason that it is not, commodified into sort of American lore, like it happened, not it happened, we're watching It Happen One Night. It's a Wonderful Life, which is also Riskin, I think. So, and Ellie was talking about how this is a film school movie.
Yep.
I think most, if not all, of my knowledge of this is from a film school textbook, just because I never got around to reading the big Frank Capra autobiography.
Obviously Mr. Capra couldn't like know this at the time, but it is extremely interesting to like look at his filmography from the enlightened space year of 2025 and see like, and he'd been working consistently since the early 20s, to be clear. But like you look at this, and I don't know any of these fucking movies, and then It Happened One Night hits at 34, and then Mr. Deeds Goes to Town in 36, You Can't Take It With You in 38, Mr. Smith Goes to Washington 39, Arsenic and Old Lace 44. Like this is the movie that makes him Frank Capra in a lot of ways, and I wonder, like, part of me wants to be contrarian and, like, go back and watch, like, what the fuck is this? The Way of the Strong and from 28 or whatever, and be able to say, oh, it's better than It Happened. It's not going to be better than It Happened One Night. But it's a funny position to take, dang it.
There's a merit to taking an insane position just for the fun of it.
You understand me.
It's why I will occasionally say things like, cannibalism is morally neutral.
Val.
That is the official stance of this podcast. Go eat someone.
It is not. It is the official. Val does not speak for us.
The same movie that Capra and Riskin did in 34, the other movie Capra did in 34 for Paramount was Broadway Bill. And that was also a Riskin script. I haven't seen it in 25 years, but I remember it being good, but it's a melodrama, and he'd been doing more melodramatics. And Platinum Blonde is one that I've always been curious about because I think it's, isn't it like a banter comedy or something? But I've seen a handful of these. They're easier to come by now than they were long ago. But his silent, oh, sorry, his silent stuff I remember just was really hacky.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of them are going to be sliding into the public domain pretty soon. Honestly, I think It Happened One Night is kind of like nearly there. I feel like I might have at some point heard of Platinum Blonde, but like, uh, I couldn't fucking tell you what I'd heard about it. Robert Williams's final screen appearance, I guess, is the thing that I probably heard. And like that is sort of the advantage of both like having access to Poob, which has it for you, and and this podcast, just like you do get to go back and rediscover stuff which hasn't been super well remembered. But like this is not on that list. This is like, I mean, like I listed the Oscars it won already. There are three movies that have won those specific five Oscars, and it's probably the one I've got the least complicated feelings on, if that says anything.
There's an undeniable, and like there's an undeniable element that like even if you have not personally watched this movie, you have seen its legacy in other things, and must like much of that is also going to be borrowed from stuff that it's borrowing from because there's nothing new under the sun. But like there was a joke on Letterbox of like every single like trope you've ever read from AO3 on AO3 at 2 in the morning when you should have been sleeping is pulling from this film.
That is not accurate.
I know
There's more than one bed.
this is true, but like yeah, it is. It has a fascinating, like it definitely has a fascinating legacy as a rom as an early rom com. Like there are elements where I'm like, oh yeah, we now consider that cliche, but like in 1930, with this, it at least even if it was broadly in response to existing films, like it is still going to not be the, oh here we go again, they're doing the exact same thing that they always do in these movies. There's another miscommunication based drama in the third act, you know et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And it's like, yeah, no, they've been doing that for 90 years. The reason it's cliche is because it's a 100-year-old trope, arguably older.
You mentioned the Thin Man earlier, and I always think about the Thin Man as a good sort of, just pacing wise, it feels very, it all, Thin Man always feels modern. The first one is just like this lean 94 minutes, and just the way the plotting works is very accessible if you need to try to think of a accessible recommendation for, I don't know, it's been a while since I've recommended movies to young people or thinking they would actually watch them. But It Happened One Night's just a little bit different in the pacing because it's still got that leftover pre-code early 30s stuff. This also, I'm pretty sure, was Clark Gable on loan to Columbia, so it needed to be a hit. She might have been on loan to them too. Like, it's got a very, you could at least get a couple podcast episodes out of the production or even the pre-production of it, just because I think it was supposed to save Columbia and then it did, and so that's when they became a sustained player. So it's just very rich contextually too.
Yeah, Thin Man's honestly fascinating because it's like, as I guess a corollary to your point that it's like still very accessible. And I will say, in this movie, also fairly lean it's maybe not quite as lean, but still 94 minutes. It gets where it's going. The plot is just to not turn this into a podcast about the Thin Man. Like the fact that like Thrilling Adventure Hour was able to reach its like success for a lot of for if you were into that type of podcast content, like, and that is just the Thin Man, but they hunt ghosts. And the plots are very much the same. The actors are very much, they're playing in kind of the same way. It's a little, a little bit more exaggerated, but still, like, there is still room for those types of stories, I think, I do think that it makes it a very accessible movie, more than you'd think from the age of the movie. And like I said, I will say that this one is fairly accessible in this too. Like, there are some universal experiences in this movie. Like, for instance, that asshole on the bus who will not leave you alone.
I was literally cracking jokes in the podcast server not half an hour ago about people on public transport who will not stop talking to me. We need to like get the rules for public transport written down in an official capacity, and number one is do not talk to me.
You heard it here, folks. The official stance of of this podcast is the conductor should allow you to shoot. Should be allowed to shoot you if you talk on the quiet car.
So yes, if you speak on the quiet car, death penalty. There's the official stance of the biggest night in podcasting.
Yeah, just throw you directly onto the tracks.
The Thin Man, I'm not going to talk too much about the Thin Man because it's not eligible for this podcast because it happened one night.
Because God is dead and we live in yeah.
It happened one night, took all of its Oscars. No, I will simply say that the fact that the sequels were all called The Thin Man kind of bothers me because the Thin Man is the victim in the first movie. Okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
This has just been a fucking bugbear I've had for 20 years at this point, and it's my podcast. I can talk about whatever I want. None of you can stop me.
Yeah, realistically, they should be more like Glass Onion and everything, where it's like,
Knives Out, not Glass Onion, Knives Out story. Yeah,
Knives Out, Glass Onion. Yeah. Or it's like, you can do that. Like, you can make a reference that's like, hey, this is it. But like, no, that Thin Man died early. You don't need to make another one. This is a different guy.
They didn't do Murder on the Orient Express and then Murder on the Orient Express 2. We're on a boat this time. They just expect you to fucking follow. He's got the big mustache. It's the guy with the big mustache.
Yeah.
God, I'm very.
Or like, they just establish, hey, it's a Poirot story. They reference Poirot or something like that. Like, they don't expect you also to understand that it's another Sherlock Holmes mystery.
Anyway, but we're not talking about the Thin Man. We're talking about It Happened One Night, which is. I had a thought that I was going to share, and I can't even remember. It was about the dude on the. I guess my main thought on the dude on the bus is just like when he said he's from Orange, New Jersey. I wished I had been watching with Val because I really just wanted to look straight at him like, hi. There's someone from Orange, New Jersey. There's a girl named Ellie. All we needed was a guy named Andrew, and it's just us in the movie. Speaking of Ellie, this is the lamest segue I've ever done, tied only with all of the other ones. I was like kicking some thoughts around in my head as I as I ignored people trying to talk to me on the train, this week at work, and so. The movie is not super fond of Ellie at the beginning. Like, the first 2/3 of the movie are Peter shit talking her, and the movie does not seem to disagree. Is that fair? Would we say that's fair?
Yes.
Yeah, no, the movie kind of functionally agrees that she is a brat.
In that context, do we think that there is some like anti-wealthy, especially anti-stockbroker sentiments bopping over from the fact that this was made in the 30s here?
Yeah, I think Capra got and Riskin, because Riskin wrote at least. We should have just brought this up a second ago. Riskin wrote Deeds, and he wrote. You Can't Take It With You, I think, is a stage adaptation. He might have written a screenplay though, but he wrote all of Capra's stuff except maybe Lost Horizon, which was the big bomb.
No, he wrote that too.
Did he? Okay, so Mr. Deeds was very explicitly political, and this one exists in that same world, but it does not ever talk about it. And what is one of the interesting things about Capra is that while his films of the 1930s were all about the common man banding together to support one another, he was quite conservative in real life. So,
Capra, yeah.
yeah. That comes out in some of the shorts or in the silence if you are unlucky enough.
That's so interesting because like I would consider most of Capra's movies good movies to be kind of solidly political on the whole. But what kind of strikes me is that I don't is you know I've always known in my head Frank Capra was a conservative, but I don't really often get that from his movies. Certainly not from his most famous one, which is It's a Wonderful Life. That one has a very understated but present leftist bent, which is, I mean, it's kind of, I mean, you maybe it's just because I'm so used to conservative filmmakers nowadays who can't shut the fuck up about it.
It certainly speaks to a different type, like a different type of conservatism than what we're dealing with now. It's not a daring statement to say that the conservative movement has become significantly more radicalized in the last 60, I say 60 years, arguably more, but we have to cut it off at some point.
They've been getting pissier ever since Nixon left office.
Yeah, like you got to cut it off at some point, but like yeah, like it's not a surprise to anyone that they become more radicalized. And so like elements like that where Capra can have maybe some more socially conservative views, but also can still at least take a stance that rich people suck is like, it's more acceptable back then in a way, like in a way that it arguably wouldn't now, where if they even if you take maybe the stance, yeah, rich people suck, if you there is a way that you have to go about saying that now, that Capra's more general, all these people are kind of shitty,
Annoying assholes.
annoying asshole, disconnected from the common man, etc. It like you would not be able to do that now without specific coding around it, which this movie just isn't interested in engaging with.
I think actually Riskin was a very outspoken liberal, so it was not,
Mm.
there wasn't a clash. And I can't remember, again, wish I'd looked it up, but I have always seen Capra as a bit of a corollary to the sort of award era of Clint Eastwood's career, where he tried very hard to appeal to an audience. He was more likely to lose people on the right for his content than he was to lose people on the left, despite giving, well, I can't remember the last time he hired James Woods, but at least from like 92 on, Clint Eastwood was very concerned about sort of the but gritty Americana.
I mean, the central reason why conservatives in modern Hollywood are kind of loud about it these days is okay, so the complexity here is that Hollywood has a reputation for being leftist, which is true and it's not. Which a lot of actors, writers, directors are all artists, and artists tend to lean broadly left. But the how do I put this in a way that makes sense? The public facing nature of those artists overstates their control over what movies get made and how, and producers, the money people behind Hollywood are very conservative. And so if a an artist is positioning themselves as conservative, they're kind of ipso facto positioning themselves as counterculture to leftist Hollywood conservative. But honestly, Hollywood movies are broadly kind of conservative. Action movies are all right wing. You heard it here last. That's not a complaint. I like a lot of action movies. They all have kind of a subtly like right wing bent by default. They're usually pro cop, for instance. So if you're trying to position yourself as a conservative instead of as just like Adam Sandler is just a guy who's conservative who's making movies, then you're probably pushing it for a reason. So you generally don't shut the fuck up about it. I'm thinking here of the guy who made Bone Tomahawk, who's just gotten more conservative as he's made more movies in a way that's made them kind of less fun for me.
Kurt Russell?
No, the behind the scenes guy, the director, or maybe the producer.
Kurt Russell too, though. So
Oh,
you know,
yeah.
Kurt Russell too. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, Kurt Russell is. I don't know Kurt Russell. Kurt Russell, write in and tell me if you're a conservative or not.
Kirk Russell joined DSA, and I'll take back what I said.
Christ. So I'm not actually, and I think that Frank Capra was overall a guy who knew how to make movies that he didn't make movie. I mean, okay, so he made a variety of movies that aren't non-political because no art is apolitical. Again, you heard it here last, but they are non-partisan, if that makes sense. They are the best comparison point I could make nowadays is like Project Hail Mary, which is quite good. Again, you heard it here last, but it is a non-partisan film, and in that context, a lot of his stuff, while is kind of just sort of broadly humanistic without really considering overarching politics. The exception being Mr. Deeds goes to not Mr. Deeds, Mr. Smith goes to Washington, which is, if I say that it's the 1930s version of The West Wing, will people get mad at me?
No.
Andrew knows that that's not me giving it a compliment.
I know that's not you giving it a compliment. We've talked about
right. But Andrew was also, when I was trying to do a podcast on Studio 60. Andrew was our Aaron Sorkin defender, which was a very thankless task, and I appreciate his valiant struggles.
Aaron Sorkin does not make that easy.
Sure doesn't. Yeah, no, there's this, like, you see that same dynamic in literature in that same way, especially with like fantasy literature or even science fiction to a certain degree, where you have these, you had like the puppies from a couple, which I'm sorry if you've managed to finally forget about those assholes, but like you had them and they were these arch conservative. They wanted, arguably they're arguing for a certain type of fiction, but they are not producing it. They are producing polemics. They are producing propaganda. And then one of the dynamics that like came about with that though is just the acknowledgement that like fantasy fiction in general is full of a lot of conservatives. It is arguably a very conservative genre in general. It is ultimately backwards looking.
I would agree with that. Yeah, same way that action movies have a conservative bent by default.
Yeah, and so you have a lot of writers in there who are naturally going to skew more conservative. And I'm not even talking about like the big ones. I'm thinking like, well, actually I am. I'm thinking of God, what's his name? The guy who did Mistborn. Sanderson. Brandon Sanderson is I know that he is like marked himself as more of like centristy, but like you can pick up a conservative bent in a lot of his books, but also he's much more interested in writing a good book.
Yeah.
And so that is going to naturally temper what he's doing. And so like, yeah, you can definitely see that element of that where it's like you can have conservative people and you can have them make genuinely interesting movies because they're more focused on making a good movie than they are about writing propaganda.
That having been said, in terms of like 1930s social realism, I put down in my notes that I really like the very long shot of Ellie crossing the yard to get to the shower. It's kind of it's long enough to be kind of pointed, if that makes sense. Like it's long enough that you notice that the shot has been going on for a minute.
Yeah, and this is before Grapes of Wrath by 5 years. Grapes of Wrath 39. And obviously the motor camp in this is not, Grapes of Wrath, but it is people living in rural America experiencing the Depression, which has a lot of whether or not it would be acknowledged as such at the time has some baked in just political context.
There's certainly the length of the shot and like the framing of it, and specifically Eleanor's behavior in those scenes certainly do kind of serve as a juxtaposition to make a point. It certainly does kind of reinforce that she is not of this world. She is not, I don't want to say real people, but like there is, it does at least further his Gables' character's consistent belief that people who are born argument that people who are born in the lap of luxury, regardless of whether or not they were given everything that they ever desired. That's Ellie's big argument against her being spoiled, is no, I'm not spoiled. I was constantly only told what I could have. I never got to actually choose. Like, it is ultimately also juxtaposed against like a entitlement that she has towards a lot of things that you wouldn't see if you were born into a lower class and had to deal with the Great Depression, deal with that those elements.
It's also like I think that regardless of his political leanings, I think that overall Frank Capra's instinct, and if someone who's read a biography of him wants to disagree with me on this, I would be interested in hearing it. But my impression of Capra as a person is that he is less interested in inserting his personal politics into a movie than he is in making a movie that he thinks people will like. He wants to make crowd pleasers. He may have created a lot of important art along the way to making crowd pleasers, but he wanted to make crowd pleasers. And in that context, you can't just avoid the Great Depression on some level because it's like right that it would be like making a movie set in August of 2020 and just pretending COVID isn't happening. And like, man, we would all know. We would all know and we would all notice and we'd all go, that's fucking weird. Why are you going out to crowded restaurants in this month of August of 2020? We all remember what that was fucking like.
Yeah, it's like if you or another arguably more obvious one that I think some people do still see. It's a movie set before 2001 that still has that failed to composite in the Twin Towers.
Well, of course, when you're doing a Pixar movie about a girl who turns into a giant red panda set in 2003, you have to address 9/11. Is this too obtuse of a reference that I'm
No,
making
I
here?
remember that person, and I hope he finds the healing light of God.
I'm that just derailed me.
That's what I'm here for.
Yes, so I got derailed initially though because I was just thinking of all the TV that COVID didn't happen in, and I think we will actually see movies if movies keep getting if we keep going. I think we will see movies that don't if they take place in 2020 at all. They would avoid COVID. I just don't think.
Yeah, I think we're going to see kind of that same dynamic that we did actually see with 9/11, which is that like a there's going to be a beat, at least within movie productions, where we're just not going to acknowledge it happened, and then suddenly we'll start seeing, oh, but it happened, and then we'll start seeing it happen, like, as I think the further we get away from the specifics of the 2020 pandemic. I am not going to speak to the rest, to the other political realities around the trying to wrap that up within a single year. But like, we will start seeing that more often the further away we get for it, much in the same way that we saw more acknowledgement of 9/11 the further away we got from 9/11, where it stopped becoming at least less pointedly, I don't know the right word for it, pointedly traumatic, I guess.
Like, I think that we can sort of start to see what I think the shape of something like COVID would be, and admittedly the Great Depression is kind of a more difficult thing to do this for, because it was, there were some people who in the 30s were just like going about their day, basically, for lack of a better term. Like the way that like you or I are right now, the economy is terrible. There's a war going on, but also I have to be at work at 8 in the morning, so I'm kind of just going about my day with an ever increasing pile of stress upon my head. We're fine. It's fine. Everything's fine right now. But I think that 9/11 actually gives us the shape that something like COVID would take in film, which is there are movies that are about it. And other than that, movies just kind of step around it. You'll notice that there are very few movies that take place specifically in 2001. There are movies that take place in 2000, and there are movies that take place in 2002. But 2001 is kind of like, unless you're doing something kind of specifically about that, like The 25th Hour, which is a great movie. It's probably my favorite Spike Lee. Or like, or you're like doing what that one Robert Pattinson movie did, and like rickrolling the audience with 9/11 at the last second. Movies just kind of step around 2001 because no one really wants to like throw that at their characters unless they're going to take the time to talk about it. So they just don't. They just move around it. Movies will happen in 2019 and they will happen in 2022, but they just kind of won't happen in 2020. And it's going to be this weird dead year, I guess, unless they're making a movie specifically about COVID, which if movies about 9/11 are our guide will mostly be pretty bad.
We may eventually get the Arrested Development joke of, well, and then 9/11 happened.
I think we're already there. I think we're all sort of at the point where we're like, yeah, man, I don't know what you do except make jokes about COVID. It sure happened.
It sure did.
How did I get on this tangent? How did I get on this tangent?
I don't know.
Oh, the depression. The depression. I did have a point. Whereas, like, the depression is long enough that movies just can't step outside of the 30s. So a lot of movies sort of avoid being about the sort of people who the depression happened most to. COVID happened to everyone. 9/11 happened to everyone. A lot of people probably just kind of had a couple of lean years on their bank accounts and just didn't really notice the depression outside of that. Whereas a lot of other people had their entire fucking life destroyed by it.
Yeah, I think that's a good point.
It needs to be said also, we really did lose something though when we got rid of gyrocopters as just a thing that would happen, or auto gyros. I'm sorry.
I do just have written down in my notes, absent any context, groom to land at wedding in an autogyro.
It's funny, and I mean, like, I guess it works as its own level of, I don't know the word for it right now, but like it does work for its own level of just like setting expectations. You know nothing about Wesley, Eleanor's husband. It's stated at the beginning that they eloped, so they are actually married, but like the whole impetus is Eleanor's father doesn't approve of it and wants to annul the marriage. And it's like they mention briefly, oh yeah, he's a pilot or something like that. His name's like, I don't they call him King Wesley. I'm not even actually sure if that's a nickname or if he is actually a king of some small European nation that hasn't collapsed yet.
Give it like 6 years.
Yeah, give it 6 years. It's a European monarchy. It's not lasting. But it is just one of those things where at the end he like flies in on an auto gyro, and it's like, oh yeah, this guy's a pilot. I completely forgot because he was literally inconsequential to the entire movie.
Yeah, I was thinking about how romantic, like love triangles, where it seems like there should be a competition. In the 30s, there was always a lot of comic effect where it would be. I don't think it was ever Cary Grant and opposite W.C. Fields or something for the affections of someone, but it was always rare that you'd get, what was it, Philadelphia's Story, where she had to pick between James Stewart and Cary Grant, or there's the joke about Sabrina where Audrey Hepburn gets to pick the guy 40 years older than her, the guy 20 years older than her. And then I was just thinking ahead until actually it's still not gone, because wasn't that why Twilight was so popular, as both choices were dreamboats? But
Mm-hmm.
King Wesley's just as a foil, he's just supposed to be a dip, and they don't bother getting into it. And it's interesting in the context of Lindbergh, and I wonder if this is one of those things where you had to be tracking the public sentiment on exhibition aviators in the 30s, like were people pissed off in 33 about government money going to this or something, because I feel like that stopped being a thing around this time, the sort of celebrity aviator. But also, I don't know when the Lindbergh kidnapping was. So
I mean, like, part of the reason why I think him showing up in an auto gyro, and I am in fact going to keep saying auto gyro, it's got good mouth feel, is that, like, as Vel pointed out, he's in like two scenes before the wedding. He has like one conversation with Ellie's dad, and then he shows up at the end of one scene, and then that's it. Then they're at the wedding, and so like I think that if you're right, and like public sentiment on aviators was low, or even if they just wanted to like sell this dude as a huge dipstick, him showing up in an auto gyro to his own wedding, it does make him look like a pompous asshole. Which good pick for that.
Yeah, it turns the whole thing into a spectacle in a way that like it turns it into a spectacle specifically for him. I think the implication, if I recall, the implication at the beginning is that like Ellie's dad is just convinced that Wesley is only interested in her for his money, kind of arguably proven by the fact that he's able to pay him off for $100,000 to annul the wedding.
Mm-hmm.
I was just like, yeah, here's $100,000, go away. So it's like the implication I have with that, especially in like that, is I think sold by Gable's character asking for money for bringing Eleanor back, and Eleanor is insistent, like convinced it's going to be the $10,000 reward, and he just shows up. It's like, yeah, I want $39. It's for the clothes I had to pawn off to buy us some gas.
They just straight robbed that guy of his car, by the way, which I think is hilarious.
Yeah, I guess that's your proof that it's pre-code. There's just crime on scene and it's never punished.
They didn't even judge it. He's like, well, he tried to steal from us, so I'm taking his car.
Yeah. So fuck him. It's all's fair now. It's grand theft. What's that? It doesn't exist yet. But like, yeah, it's I think that is kind of like, it's supposed to be just kind of understood with that juxtaposition, is that like, oh yeah, the reason Gable's character wins is he's down to earth. He doesn't want her money. He likes her for she's fun to be around, and there's like an adventurous side to her that he's looking for in a woman, and that's why he wins versus Wesley, who's a pompous fop who flies autogyros and is only actually interested in marrying her for her money after a afternoon car ride around New York City where she was running away from her bodyguards.
Auto gyro.
Autogyro. Autohero?
No.
No. Wrong. Same spelling, wrong word entirely.
I do have in my notes for all the people writing, like, is there some Japanese word for like slap slap kiss kiss that I should be aware of?
It'd just be tsundere.
Okay, if you want to write that kind of romance, I need you to carry forward the spirit of Clark Gable exiting a room, shouting, "Yes, I love her, but don't hold that against me!"
Yeah, he is. Clark Gable ran so that Asuka could, Clark Gable walked so that Asuka could run. Like, it is funny to hear that and understand that the modern version is, it's not because I like you or anything, or something like that. It is he is very much a tsundere. Very rare instance of a male tsundere.
Also, audience, please remember there is literally nothing I want more than you people arguing over the correct pronunciation of tsundere in the comments. Okay? Okay.
Here, I'll say it the other way just to piss off everyone. Tsundere.
Thank you.
Here's a third one just to piss you off even more. Tsundeer.
Son, dear. Andrew, get us back on topic or something. I don't know.
Okay, well, when you came up with this one, there was one thing I wanted to discuss, which is the ending. So here's where spoilers come in. We don't get to see the leads reunite on screen. They reunite off screen, which I was watching something last week and it had the same sort of ending, which is not uncommon in this era and often seems like it's because they didn't have those actors anymore, so they filmed without them.
Yeah.
Yeah, shooting was done, and they're just like, okay, you're good. We got the dad for one more day.
The Walls of Jericho ending is what I called it after I first saw this and realized that it was, just I can't think of many modern movies that do it without it being, it just is. So we talked about The Thin Man and the pacing and things like that. We talked about this one as an early rom-com and sort of probably the earliest rom-com that is part of the sort of golden age stable of sort of familiar old Hollywood movies. You don't get much earlier than this. If anyone can think of a rom-com before this, it needs to be more sort of known than The Thin Man, but can be less known than this. But there's this Gary Cooper and Merle Oberon movie called The Cowboy and the Lady, and that's from 36 or 37. And I haven't seen it except one time 25 years ago or whatever, but I swear it has a standard late 90s romantic comedy plot beat for beat. It's like you're watching the Jennifer Aniston one with Jay Moore or something like that, except it's Gary Cooper as a cowboy and Merle Oberon is a lady of some sort, I think, of wealth, but I also don't remember other than the title. But so it's just interesting that, nope, I forgot how I even got here. Oh, the Walls of Jericho. That, I'm 99% sure, doesn't have some ending like that. And you'd have Walls of Jericho ending in other Capra movies to some extent. Even in Mr. Deeds, Gary Cooper and Jean Arthur never really reunite in a significant way to clear up their sort of love trouble. And then Ellie, on More the Merrier, do they end up?
They do reunite after they get their wedding that's fake but not actually fake. And then they're in the apartment together, and what's his name has knocked down the walls of their bedroom so that they have one big bedroom. And they do reunite, and modern rom-coms are obviously going to be quite different because I've made this point a lot on friend of the pod Rivers podcast, The Straights Aren't All Right, but rom-coms kind of go through cycles of what movie they're imitating, because of a variety of issues I'm not going to go into, and currently, the last really big rom com boom, everyone was trying to be What Women Want, the Mel Gibson movie, and then the bottom fell out of mid budget movies, and now rom coms are pretty much exclusively the with a few exceptions. No, I haven't seen the Tuscany movie that's apparently quite good, but with few exceptions, rom coms are pretty much exclusively right now the domain of Hallmark, which sucks. So we're a lot of I feel like for a long time rom-coms were doing these endings because they were all trying to be it happened one night, or maybe a few years later bringing up baby, which I think also has that this kind of ending where like they don't reunite on screen. Am I wrong? It's been a very long time since I've seen bringing up baby. I'm kind of counting on one of you two having seen it.
I haven't seen it.
I haven't seen it lately, but I believe you're correct. I think it's in that stable, yeah.
Yeah, it's sound off in the comments if I'm wrong. And as for the cowboy and the lady, I've never seen that or heard of it. But good news for Cup for eventually seeing it. It won Best Sound Recording at the 11th Academy Awards, so
Nice.
we'll get to it someday. Back when they had, holy shit, how many movies were nominated for that? Oh my, the early Oscars are so weird, man. You can tell this is an early Oscars. They don't have supporting actor nominees.
Yeah, there is an element that like I would to I guess support the point that they didn't have access to the actors. It works. The way that they ended it works. Like you know exactly what's happening.
They fucking.
And so like with yeah, they fucking to quote Pro ZD, oh they fucking. But like it works for that ending is okay, well they because like the last time they had talked about the walls, like the walls of Jericho was like a running gag because while they're traveling up the east coast, they are having to share a hotel under the guise of being a married couple, and they put a clothesline with a blanket over the center so they can both have some privacy. And so it's like haha, it's this is what brings it down. They are willing to share a bed, they're coming together, and it's like as a result when they finally get married, it's like the last little like wedding night ritual that they have is they force the proprietor of the car park to go out and buy them a toy trumpet and play it. It's very cute. I will say it worked. It made me giggle relentlessly. I quite enjoyed the ending. The movie is very much for its era, I would say it is very much or at least from a modern perspective, it is a slow burn. But also that ending works specifically because it was a slow burn. And so it's like I watched and I was giggling the entire time because it's very cute. But like, yeah, it works because of that, I think. And it obviously, yeah, if they don't have the actors, it is a perfectly cromulent way to establish and they all lived happily ever after. They're driving across the Midwest on an adventure while their dad drinks himself into a coma and gets the marriage annulled, and they're constantly sending is it annulled yet, can we do this already?
Can we fuck already?
And apparently the actual reality of it was so quick that the proprietor was just like, I don't even think they're married. The implication from the one where like you get the actual disagreement and she goes back to New York on her own with her dad is the proprietors think that he's brought her there as a prostitute, or something like that, because she talks about like how like the proprietress like says like this is a I run a clean, like I run a clean, I don't run that type of business, I run a clean proper one, in a way that makes it very clear what she thinks Ellie is.
Yeah, I'm not a whore. I'm just a slut.
No, I'm a whore, as you keep telling me every time you walk into the warehouse.
Correct.
But like, yeah, it does work as a, well, we're shooting's wrapped, we need an end, but that's fine, we're not gonna, we don't need you for the ending. And it works as a very clean, very quick wrap up to say okay, and it's done.
So how do we feel? And again, this is unfortunately going to be more of an Andrew question than a Vel question, because I suspect that I know what your answers to this is going to be. How do we feel this compares to the other two movies that have won they call it the Big Five Oscars: picture, director, actor, actress, screenplay, appropriate screenplay. The other two being One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest and Silence of the Lambs. Very, very different movies from this one.
Well, I liked it more than Silence.
That's, I mean,
Same.
we'll talk about Silence of the Lambs someday. It has the unenviable position of having real material consequences for people like me for existing and also just being really fucking good.
Is Hannibal Lecter a Blanchardist? Sound off in the comments.
I'm going to fucking kill you, Val.
Sound off in the comments if you think Hannibal Lecter has opinions on AGP versus HSTS.
I'm begging you to not sound off in the comments about that.
At Ellie on Blue Sky.
Do
It'll
not
make her
at
day.
me. It will not. It will do the opposite. I mean, like, part of the problem that I sort of like. So obviously, part of the reason why both of them were nominated for Best Actor and Best Actress, part of the reason why it happens so often is like in a lot of movies like that, you'll get Best Actor and Best Supporting Actress, and frankly, for both of the other two, like, okay, Best Actor, fair enough for One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, fair enough. Jack Nicholson in One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, fair enough. I'm sorry. Why is Nurse Ratched nominated in Best Actress and Best instead of Best Supporting Actress? Why is Hannibal Lecter, who has 14 minutes of screen time, Best Actor for Silence of the Lambs instead of supporting? Because they wanted to win the Big Five. But still, like, this is the only one of the three where I think that the Best Actor and the Best Actress both deserve the lead slot.
Yeah, you can't argue that Colbert is not just as much a lead as Gable, and she does a good job of it. When I posted my Letterboxd review, I had nothing but good things to say about. She is thoroughly a brat, and also seems like she'd be a fun hang.
So I got curious about other movies that have won Best Actor and Best Actress, not necessarily the others. Google Gemini says it's only the three already mentioned. Google Gemini is of course incorrect.
Shocking.
Instead, it happened one night, One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, Network, Peter Finch and Faye Dunaway, though I think you could argue that Faye Dunaway could be Best Supporting, but it also won Best Supporting Actress, I believe. Coming Home, so Jon Voight and Jane Fonda, so they're both the leads. On Golden Pond, I've never seen, but it was Henry Fonda and Katharine Hepburn, but I don't think Katharine Hepburn was like the lead. I thought it was Jane Fonda. Silence of the Lambs, and then As Good as It Gets. So this has really only happened 3 times, or wait, 1, 2, without having seen On Golden Pond, I would guess 3 times you've actually had it be where the lead actor and lead actress are winning, both winning for the same picture. So that's even, while not numerically rarer than the others, it certainly seems like it happens. It's stranger that it doesn't happen more often, but then how many movies are there where there's sort of that consensus on the leads?
So, like, obviously the argument that what's her name, Faye Dunaway couldn't be in Best Supporting Actress because Beatrice Straight needed to be nominated and win in Best Supporting Actress is fair enough. And to be clear, down for both of those awards. Both Beatrice Straight and Faye Dunaway are very good in Network. Previous episode. I've actually heard a lot of arguments that Peter Finch should be moved into supporting actor because while he is the focus of the movie, he is not the drive. Like, he is essentially driving the plot by not by his own intention. He's basically having a mental breakdown the entire movie. But then, of course, we couldn't have Ned Beatty nominated. We were so close to having all 4 of them go to Network. We were this close. We used to be a real country.
That is a good point. I completely forgot that it's William Holden.
Ned Beatty in Network, extremely good movie. Extremely good at performance. Really good movie. See previous episode. Yeah, William Holder didn't win. Peter Finch won. Which, yeah, I think you probably could have moved Peter Finch to supporting, or I think you probably could have moved. Network is such an ensemble movie. Like, Beatrice Straight and Ned Beatty are both nominated for it, and they both only each get like one real scene, and they're like big scenes. Ned Beatty's scene is a huge fucking scene, but it's only like one scene, so it's very hard to determine in that movie specifically what constitutes a best actor and a best supporting actor. I've not seen On Golden Pond either. I guess we'll cover it someday. I rolled it up once, but I think that was the same week I rolled up Black Narcissus, and Black Narcissus is one of my favorite movies. Um, yeah, I don't remember As Good as It Gets. I don't recall liking it very much, so gonna be I'm not gonna speak about it right now because I'm probably not gonna be very fair. I have vague and kind of memories of it. So Google Gemini is just straight wrong again. That's fun.
I was actually gonna roll with the Google Gemini, and I was like, nah, I should probably click on the Reddit post.
Yep. Kids, official stance: the biggest night in podcasting. Don't trust the fucking AI chatbots.
Information aggregators can only aggregate it, effectively if the information is correct, and depending on how the system reads the prompt, it will give you wildly different ideas because it can only do so much. This is why research is an actual skill and not just a thing you can make a robot do.
But didn't you hear that one post by Mark whatever? Simply tell your chat GPT not to hallucinate.
Why didn't I think of that?
Simply tell the guard who always lies, don't lie to me. It's that easy.
Well, yeah, but see, Ellie, in order to understand why that won't work, you have to have an internal world and a theory of mind, and Mark Andreessen literally doesn't believe in that.
Vel, I'm gonna let you in on a secret. I don't have to understand anything I don't want to. That's my right as an American. My last point about the Walls of Jericho scene, and this is going to be under hot take of the century, Frank Capra is a good director. I really like the putting the blankets bit up is obviously like a character beat, but it leads to some really good filmmaking. I'm extremely fond of the scene where they're right outside of New York City, and the journey is essentially over, and Ellie is sitting on one side of the blanket talking to what amounts to a wall with him responding from this. It's just a really good isolating shot to indicate that like she doesn't want to go back anymore. I like that she does. Vel commented that she's very good in this. I like that she doesn't overplay that realization from her. She plays it very quiet.
Yeah, you can tell, like, because like they it's not foreshadowing, but like they set it up by showing that she has gotten a hold of a newspaper, and she is seeing the headline as part of her dad's ploy that, like, come home, dear, I will not, like, I won't annul the marriage or something like that, which means the combination of that and being 3 hours out of New York City means, like, she knows the gig is up, and there's no attempt for her to, well, okay, she doesn't think there's an attempt for her to actually make a significant change at this point, because that was why she had run away in the first place, was to stay with Wesley. And so it's like, yeah, it's like there is a moment in her acting where she just becomes less bratty towards Gable at that point, and you can tell, like, in her own way, that she's not like she's trying to push back to stall it out, but not in the way of like this bratty I want to do what I want way, but more like, well, I don't want this to end kind of way. And it's a very there's a very subtle there's a good difference to it. There's a noticeable difference. I don't even want to call it a subtle difference. There's a noticeable difference to the performance that works very well for making it clear that she is not into it anymore.
Yeah. If you think about it in terms of the sort of screwball comedy genre, the black and white screwball comedy genre, where you would have like Bringing Up Baby as the sort of midpoint, and then there'd be some highlights at the end, but then you'd get into like CinemaScope and color and things like that, and it was a different type of comedy They got stagier as they went along, sometimes literally because they were using bigger sound stages. But this is still that sort of early sound filmmaking where they're thinking about the way they're capturing the scene between, like, the setting of the roadside motor lot car, what, oh god, what are they even called?
Car park, I think.
Yeah, but it's raining out, so there's no light, and so it's very you would sort of, I mean, it's moody in a way that you might get back to some degree with film noir in the late 40s, but otherwise for like character drama and character moments, you're sort of exporting it more to like Bergman than you are to anything that's getting done in the US in the 50s.
Yeah, it's. I mean, it's going to be I'm not going to say that nothing good comes out of the Code era Hollywood, but it's going to be a grim few years there, I feel, overall. Although a lot of the stuff kind of gets memory hold, as we've learned. Anyone got any final thoughts?
I just keep thinking of auto gyros. We should we failed as a society when we got rid of those. I'm just gonna keep that. That's my new political statement.
Barack Obama, go back in time to when you were president and bring back auto gyros. I want to take an auto gyro to work instead of the train now. If only because I don't want guys like Shapley talking to me. We didn't really talk about like Shapley or the like Bugs Bunny connection from this movie, huh?
Yeah, there is a. This is not like lost on. This has been like this isn't a hot take. I think people like you cannot learn about Bugs Bunny and not ultimately find some film trivia bit where it's just like, oh yeah, he's pastiching. He was a pastiche of this, this stuff and this stuff. It's like, if you have watched Bugs Bunny cartoons and you have like you see this, you can see exactly where Bugs was pastiching like Gable or Shapley or other elements of it.
Mm-hmm. For the animator who created him said this was his favorite movie, so elements of your favorite movie end up in your art.
Yeah, it's very noticeable, and as a result, it's very fun.
Mm-hmm. Andrew, any final thoughts?
Not as such. However, I did look up the only other movie Clark Gable and Claudette Colbert made together is 1940's Boomtown, co-starring Spencer Tracy and Hedy Lamarr, which is when I stopped reading, and so I don't know if it won any Oscars.
That's Headley.
Yes. So
sorry, I have to.
They never became a on-screen pairing, which is somewhat odd. You'd think. Well, no, it's not, because
they were out from different studios, which was like.
Also, Clark Gable got to be a movie star much longer than Claudette Colbert got to be a movie star. So.
It was nominated for 2, but it doesn't appear to have won any. Boomtown.
Yeah.
Unfortunate. They play off each other very well. It would have been nice.
Yeah.
It was kind of like the mechanics of the studio system. For the record, Clark Gable was on loan from, I think, MGM is what I discovered, but by the time I saw that on his Wikipedia page, I sort of like the conversation had moved on. So it's not a. Yeah, my last thought is autogyro. Vel, do you have anything you'd like to plug?
No, it's the usual suspects. You can find me on Blue Sky at snakegirls.net, where I mostly shitpost and post the occasional Warhammer figurine, but I don't do anything crazy outside of that.
Warhammer, you must be a nerd.
Man, we really are pot and kettle.
Yeah, we are. Andrew, do you have anything you'd like to plug? Not necessarily Warhammer related.
No, I don't have anything Warhammer related to plug. At best, I'm still posting at thestopbutton.com. So
you can plug whatever you want. Like I haven't gotten a chance to listen to your podcast much, but go follow Andrew.
Yeah.
As always, our host can be found on Blue Sky, Medium, and Letterboxd at LSR42, and on Tumblr at Football in Tuxedos. This podcast can be found on both YouTube and Spotify. If you liked what you heard, maybe give us a comment and tell us what you liked, or just like the video if it's on YouTube. Subscribe. Make sure you get new episodes. They come out every other Wednesday as of right now. And if you didn't like what you heard, I'm sorry.
And thanks to both Vel and Andrew for joining me today. It was a pretty old movie we covered. I guess that's the point at some point. But for our next episode we're going to be into June, which means it's Pride Month. So we are putting aside our normal list to go cover some gay shit, which means we are opening up Pride Right by covering the 1980s movie Victor Victoria. Hope to see you there.